for being here this afternoon. I'm here today along
Okay. Test. So, by-election happening in Hamilton. I guess Doug Ford is giving like a live sort of talk right now.
with the Prime Minister about those things?
Well, Mark, I'll answer the speaking to him as I was pulling up, and that's why I was a little delayed. I spoke to the Prime Minister a few minutes ago. We're all part of Team Canada.
With the Prime Minister about those things?
Well, Mark, I'll answer the that's why I was a little delayed. I spoke to the Prime Minister a few minutes ago. We're all part of Team Canada. All set. I'm here today alongside with Ministers Fedeli and Bethenfalvy, as well as Minister Oosterhoff and P.A. Sorello and Mayor Horvath, to talk about President Trump's latest economic attack on Canada and what our government is doing in response. Earlier today, I had the chance to meet with workers at the Fasco steel plant here in Hamilton. And my message to those workers is the same message I have for workers across Ontario. No matter what President Trump sends our way, we'll have your backs. We will be there for you to protect your jobs and paychecks and stand up for Canada. The Prime Minister has my full support in this decision to walk away from a bad deal that would have hurt Canadian workers and undermined
really hurt
Canadian sovereignty.
Some of the Conservative voters.
And he has my full support to hit back tariff for tariff.
We shouldn't.
Dollar for dollar.
We shouldn't be fighting.
But let's be clear,
like conservative thing
this
here.
will not be easy. To stand up for Canada, to stand up against President Trump, we have to withstand the economic pain that will come with this fight.
It's just, it's so contradictory, the Conservative Party. Look what Pierre Poilievre is doing. Jamil Javani. He's like a really good friend of J.D. Vance. Like, they went to law school together. And he doesn't condone Jamil, like, literally going over and speaking to Trump as like a sort of tie between the two. We have Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, saying one thing, where we agree with Mark Carney and what he's doing. And then we have Pierre Poilievre, who is, buddy with this guy Jamil. It just doesn't make sense.
Largely stayed silent on what has transpired.
Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper is piercing that silence with a warning.
One-way tariffs introduced by the U.S. must be reciprocated.
Prime Minister Mark Carney dropped most counter tariffs against the United States last summer, but 25% tariffs remain on steel and aluminum. In the upcoming trade talks with the U.S., Harper says Canada should be prepared to hit back with more levies.
Now, will that, friends, be costly in the short run? Yes. But what we can never concede are permanent one-way economic flows from Canada to the United States.
I agree. I think most
His
Canadians
suggestion
agree.
is out of step with Western premiers who say retaliatory tariffs punish Canadian consumers. The federal finance minister was asked if it's time for a strategy shift.
Would you reconsider counter tariffs?
Well, I think Canada has been playing its cards very well in the context. I mean, if you look, 85% of our trade is tariff-free.
How much will this
Conservative
actually
MP
affect us?
Jamil
We'll see.
Giovanni, a longtime friend of U.S. Vice President
Mark
J.D.
Carney
Vance,
is
is
still
in
waiting
Washington
to
this
release, like,
week,
his sort of
saying the trip is a
proposal on
bid
how
to
the
help
government can
trade
interfere.
talks. On social media, he posted he had productive meetings with the White House and State Department, and that the president asked me to pass along a message. Tell the Canadians I love
Because
them.
I know here in Windsor we
Giovanni
have a big auto
declined Global
industry.
News' request for an
So, I'm
interview.
sure the
He
federal
told a
government's gonna have to
Washington-based
help
media
subsidize some
outlet
stuff
that he
for
sat
them.
down with Vance and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio Wednesday and was set to meet with unnamed Republican senators Thursday.
What took him so long? Like, I mean, a year ago he got elected.
I'm not really sure what role he's serving there, but
Yeah.
you know, sometimes less is more.
At several events this week, Harper underscored the need for political parties to work together to confront
So,
a united
amid this entire trade war, why is the conservative leader like buddy with Jamil, who's like pretty much Trump's puppet and like entryway into the U.S.? And Jamil's been a huge advocate of like, oh, we shouldn't be doing this trade war, blah blah blah. So it's like it's contradictory. What's going on with the federal and the provincial sort of conservatives? They're a bit of a mess. But yeah, anyways,
The first question, I was speaking to him as I was pulling up, and that's why I was a little delayed. I spoke to the Prime Minister a few minutes ago. We're all part of Team Canada, and we're going to have further discussions. We're putting teams together across Canada to make sure we're all on the same page. As for the electricity, everything's on the table. Critical minerals, everything's on the table. But I can't do this alone, folks. I need every premier playing on Team Canada, and I'm confident that every single premier will be part of Team Canada.
except for literally
You
your
also
own
measure it. Well,
conservatives, bro.
you've announced the expansion of one of the measures that you had already implemented to help businesses and individuals. I'm just curious, among those different programs that you had already implemented, what kind of effectiveness you've had to this point? Because there doesn't seem to be a whole lot coming back in terms of information
Like, don't
to
listen
us
to
in
any
terms
of these
how
talking
effective
heads.
things have
It
been over
means
the last
nothing.
year or
Okay,
so.
but your
Well,
vote means
thanks for that
everything.
question, Mark. You know, I think it's been very effective. Ontario led North America in
That
job
same-
creation last month with 52,000
That same sort of
jobs.
idea of I don't
And
listen to
that's
any of these
during
talking heads. It
uncertain
means nothing.
times.
Is like, okay, so you're
Even
just gonna
when
let your
we have certain
country
times,
like.
those are record
go to
numbers.
shit,
Over the last
you know?
4 months, we've created another
It's at least
120,000
important to be
jobs, attracting
know what's going on.
investment from all over the world.
Could Giovanni be making a
well
move
over
for federal or
$230
provincial
billion,
leader when the
and
slaughter
I want
comes
to
up?
give
I
a
don't know if you
shout
agree, but I
out
find
to
him more
Minister
annoying
Vic
than parent.
Fideli
Like, yeah,
that travels
I
around
totally
the
agree.
world. He sends me a
I mean,
message
Donald Trump
every
is super
single
unpopular
day,
in Canada, so
365
I
days
doubt
a
he'll
year,
go anywhere
about
with
companies investing
being Trump's
billions,
like little
hundreds of
sock
millions,
puppet.
tens of millions, and even millions, even the small businesses. So we have to create the climate and the conditions to attract new investment here, which we have over the last 8 years. And an additional million people are working today than they were in 2018. We are leaders when it comes to nuclear, small modular reactors. We're leading the G7, large-scale nuclear that we're building, which
It's ironic because in
everyone needs,
Hamilton right
including our
now, there's
neighbors
a
south of the
steel
border,
plant.
want our
Not
energy.
steel plant.
Folks, remember, we
like a
power
steel cart plant
1.5
that's
million
currently
homes
on
and
strike.
businesses. What I find ironic about this is we're
I'm
actually
looking to
giving
see if Doug Ford is going to
electricity to companies to make
mention that because
products
he's in Hamilton.
to compete
Makes
against
sense
us.
to mention the
That needs to stop.
people on strike
And
right
we're
now.
going to address that. As this escalates, everything will be on the table. Our critical minerals, we have more than anyone in the entire world.
Trump mostly
As
I
a matter
don't
of
listen
fact,
to. Agreed.
my minister, Greg Rickford, is making an announcement up in Narrowland First Nations to move the road forward to the Ring of Fire, to get those critical minerals out of the ground. But every single person in this province, in this country, has to play a role. When you go out shopping, look for Made Ontario, Made in Canada, or Made somewhere else in the world. Do your very best. And I know it's easy to say, but do your very best to look at the labels. And I know it's not always possible,
Okay.
but the people, the consumers play a massive role. Let's put pressure on the
Zig and Zag
Walmarts. Let's put
369, they're
pressure
all
on
in
the
a club we're
Loblaws, the
not in.
Sobeys,
Agreed,
the
but the same
Metros.
thing
I'm naming the
applies to the
big
conservatives here
retailers
in
to
Ontario.
buy Ontario products from Ontario.
This guy talking right now
That's
is
my
the Trump of
recommendation,
Ontario.
and I'm confident that everyone will follow suit. And that goes for the 444 municipalities. Make sure your procurement buys Ontario goods. And that goes for other companies too. No matter if it's the meters that they measure electricity. I'm calling out Electra. Make sure it's not American. Make sure it's Ontario or Canadian, because I keep hearing
Yeah,
rumors
fire mentioned.
that we're going to spend hundreds of millions down in the U.S. That cannot happen. And that's just one company out of many. But we need a Team Canada
I got
approach.
you.
Hi, Premier Rob Ferguson, Toronto Star.
Hi, Rob.
Hi there. Just wondering, since you've talked to the Prime Minister shortly before getting here, what did you talk about the 25% electricity surtax, bringing that back? Did you talk about bringing the Reagan ad, and bringing it back, and if so, what did he say?
Well, I did talk about playing a Team Canada approach, making sure that no matter if it's our electricity that we ship down there, but many other provinces' electricity.
Okay, so you're giving
and
this talk
other
in
areas
Hamilton.
that we can
There's an
really
election going
put
on, a
pain
by-election
on the
in
US.
Hamilton.
No matter
Is
if
he
it's
gonna
the
talk about
oil,
it?
or if it's potash, or if it's uranium, any of those. I am going to have a call with Danielle Smith at the end of the day here, or 4 o'clock.
Yes, I remember
roughly.
his
We'll have a
crackhead brother.
discussion and get her
10 times
opinion
better
on
than
what
Doug.
we need to
But
do
yeah.
to protect Canadian workers. So it has to be a Team Canada approach. Everyone has to be singing off the same song sheet, and there can't be any detractors, because I know that every single Canadian wants to protect our sovereignty, wants to protect jobs in their communities. So we're going to work collectively together.
Okay, so it sounds like you're not going to freelance.
This is like
any
an
of these
easy
moves.
one.
You're
Everyone
gonna do it in
agrees that we need to
conjunction
fight
and
back.
perhaps with the approval of the feds.
But it is on the table. And
Fight
I
back
agree.
against the U.S.
Okay.
I said that electricity surcharge is going to be on the table. I'll hold off on the ads for now. I don't want to escalate it
I'll
anymore.
hold off on
but
the
we need
ads
to
for
fight
now.
back.
This guy.
Okay, I was just
We're
wondering,
getting
you sound a
tariffed
little more
up the
subdued
up
than
the
you did this
kazoo.
morning on the radio when you said
And this guy,
Donald Trump
this guy's
kiss your ass. Did
unironically
the Prime
creating
Minister
like
tell you to
ads.
ask you to tone it down a bit?
No, he didn't. I'm not going to comment, but he wasn't against that. And I have a lot of real estate on my ass, so he has a lot of room to kiss my ass. So
I'm a rich
I
real
just
estate
do.
developer.
I'm a big dude. What can I say?
Thank you.
Premier
You too,
Sean
Zig
Jeff
and
from
Zag.
CBC News. I know you haven't had an opportunity to see this, but we were just looking at a very fresh post here from President Trump on Truth Social, taking aim at you personally, taking shots at you, suggesting you should fall in line, and that you were a
Wait, what? Is this true? Did Trump mention Doug Ford? Trump. Doug Ford. It was on Truth Social. I'm gonna look up. I want to see what Trump had to say about Doug Ford.
I promise you, our government will be there, doing whatever to bring.
Have the opportunity to do something as a province. You've mentioned cutting off electricity, for example, in the past. There's the opportunity to cut off critical minerals. You've mentioned those things. What can we expect specifically from the province? And have you spoken with the Prime Minister about those things?
Well, Mark, I'll answer the first question. I was speaking to him as I was pulling up, and that's why I was a little delayed. I spoke to the Prime Minister a few minutes ago. We're all part of Team Canada, and we're going to have further discussions. We're putting teams together across Canada to make sure we're all on the same page. As for the electricity, everything's on the table. Critical minerals, everything's on the table. But I can't do this alone, folks. I need every premier playing on Team Canada. And I'm confident that every single premier
Oh
will
my
be
God, he
part of Team
did.
Canada.
Wait, what did... Because I saw the Doug Ford telling Trump to kiss his ass. This is Donald Trump's reply. This was today. Lots of bluster from Doug Ford, who is the premier of the Canadian province of Ontario, but who's better known as the less charismatic, intelligent, and overall unimpressive brother of the late great Rob Ford. Bro. America has been carrying Canada for decades, not true, but no longer. The USA will always be far bigger, richer, and stronger than Canada. Without the United States, Canada couldn't survive. Simply not true. It's where they get all of their money. Again, not true. Because of their current bad leadership, primarily Governor Carney and his flunky Ford. They will not be allowed to keep taking advantage of the US. We don't. It's literally a free trade agreement. We both benefit. They're key to survival. Remember, much of the electricity, oil, and gas that Canada gets is transported through the US. Someone should get these clowns to fall in line, or the consequences for Canada will be far worse. Canada's unemployment rate is now at 10% and rapidly rising. That's because of Doug Ford. Their businesses are fleeing for the United States. Aren't the tariffs like horrible for the US? Aren't they like losing businesses? I swear they've lost like more jobs in the Trump administration than like ever before. So the businesses are fleeing for the United States is also just not true. And it's all because of their failed policies and inept leadership. The days of ripping off our farmers and other businesses are over. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yeah, it's like a lot of Canadian companies have literally, I mean, this is Trump though. It's typical like right-wing government. Like you just lie. Just lie and fearmonger, and I guess you get away with it. Interesting.
You also measure, well, you've announced the expansion of one of the measures that you had already implemented to help businesses and individuals. I'm just curious, among those different programs that you had already implemented, what kind of effectiveness you've had to this point? Because there doesn't seem to be a whole lot coming back in terms of information to us in terms of how effective things have been over the last year or so.
Well,
What the
thanks
heck?
for that
Someone in
question,
my
Mark.
YouTube
You know,
chat
I
just
think
went,
it's
Je
been
peux te
very
manger
effective.
mon chocolat. Hey,
Ontario
yo.
led North America in
Relax.
job creation last month with 52,000 jobs. And that's during uncertain times. Even when we have certain times, those are record numbers. Over the last 4 months, we've created another 120,000 jobs, attracting investment from all over the world. Well over $230 billion. And I want to give a shout out to Minister Vic
I won't
Fedeli
take the word of
that
a
travels
man
around the world.
that
He
thinks
sends me a
he's
message
God
every
for
single
fact,
day,
Lamau.
365 days a
Yeah, Trump
year,
is a joke.
about companies investing billions, hundreds of millions, tens of millions, and even millions.
It's kind of
even with
funny
small
seeing Doug Ford
businesses.
fight with Trump,
So
even
we
though
have
they're
to create
like
the climate and the conditions to
two cheeks
attract
of the
new
same ass,
investment
you know?
here, which we have over the last 8 years. And an additional million people are working today than they were in 2018. We are leaders when it comes to nuclear, small modular reactors. We're leading the G7.
Both built like a
Large-scale
refrigerator.
nuclear that we're
True.
building, which
Typical like
everyone needs,
billionaire,
including our neighbors south of the
born
border,
rich sort
want
of
our energy. Folks, remember, we power
archetype.
1.5 million homes and businesses. What I find ironic about this is we're actually giving electricity to companies to make products to compete against us.
This
That
is
needs
true.
to stop. And we're going to address that. As this escalates, everything will be on the table. Our critical minerals, we have more than anyone in the entire world. And matter of fact, my minister, Greg Rickford, is making an announcement up in Narrowland First Nations to move the road forward to the Ring of Fire, to get those critical minerals out of the ground. But every single person in this province, in this country, has to play a role. When you go out shopping, look for Made Ontario, Made in Canada, or Made somewhere else in the world. Do your very best. That's my recommendation, and I'm calling out Electra. Make sure it's not American. Make sure it's Ontario or Canadian, because I keep hearing rumors that we're going to spend hundreds of millions down in the U.S. That cannot happen. And that's just one company out of many. But we need a Team Canada approach.
Yeah, this is easy.
Hi, Premier Rob
Political
Ferguson,
points
Toronto
to
Star.
just
Hi, Rob.
Hi there. Just wondering, since you've talked to the Prime
fight
Minister shortly before
Trump
getting
on
here,
these
what
tariffs.
did you talk about the 25% electricity surtax, bringing that back? Did you talk about bringing the Reagan ad, and bringing it back? And if so, what did he say?
Well, I did talk about playing a Team Canada approach, making sure that no matter if it's our electricity that we ship down there, but many
It's
other
honestly kind of
provinces'
beautiful
electricity
how,
and
broadly
other
speaking,
areas that
like
we
all
can
sides of the political
really
spectrum,
put
except like the
pain
far
on
right
the
Canadians,
U.S. No
agree that it's
matter
like
if
Team
it's
Canada
the
sort of thing.
oil
It's like
or
we're
if it's
banding together to
potash
fight
or if it's
the
uranium,
bigger evil.
any of those. I am going to have a call with Danielle Smith at the end of the day here, or 4 o'clock roughly, have a discussion and get her opinion on what we need to do to protect Canadian workers. So it has to be a Team Canada approach. Everyone has to be
Alright,
singing
take a
off the
shot every
same
time he
song
says
sheet,
Team Canada.
and there can't be any detractors, because I know that every single Canadian wants to protect our sovereignty, wants to protect jobs in their communities. So we're going to work collectively together.
Okay, so it sounds like you're not going to freelance any of these moves. You're going to do it in conjunction and with perhaps with the approval of the feds.
But it is on the table, and he agreed.
Okay.
I said that electricity surcharge is going to be on the table. I'll hold off on the ads for now. I don't want to escalate it anymore. But we
All
need
the
to fight
workers
back.
hanging on the back.
Okay,
I
I was
hope they
just
get
wondering, you
paid.
sounded a little more subdued than you did this
True.
morning on the radio when you said Donald Trump could kiss your ass. Did the Prime
I
Minister
wonder if they're
tell
like
you
paid
to
actors.
ask you to tone it down a bit?
No. A bully like President Trump, as I said before, he's the type of guy in school that would take your lunch money one day, take your toque off your head the next day, and then steal your running shoes. But I'm not going to take
Okay,
any
but Doug,
advice
you're
off
the
a
type of guy to
that's
sell
the
him
king of
drugs
bankruptcies. And he's
back in the
actually
day.
tariffing his own people, taxing his own people. And I'm going to make sure I communicate through the U.S. media. I'm going to be
I
reaching
think
out
they're
to every
real
single
workers,
governor,
but
every
surely they're
single
paid to be
senator, and
there.
every single congressperson.
I don't know.
And when it comes to the
Maybe.
midterms,
I
I
hope
have a
so.
message to the Americans. Don't vote in a person that's going to kill your jobs. He ran on creating more jobs. Last time I checked, jobs went down in the U.S., and Ontario created more jobs. He ran on reducing the cost of living. Last time I checked, food's more expensive down there. Homes are more expensive. And the reason homes are more expensive because he has a tariff on our lumber, which 33% of all homes that are built in the U.S. use Canadian lumber. So I'm not going to take lessons off President Trump. He's the last guy that I would take any lessons off. And it's about Team Canada.
True. See,
Well,
I
we'll
wish
see how
the federal
this
leader,
goes, but
Pierre
if he
Poilievre, would
wants to put
speak
pain
the
on
same way
Canadians,
about Trump.
we'll leverage every bit of pain we possibly can on Americans. And you know what I feel bad for? I've always said I love the American people. I still stand by that statement because there's a lot of people in the U.S. that are calling me saying, way to go, keep going. You know, your own people, President Trump, don't even like you. And they're going to speak loud and clear
No
when it
comment
comes to
on
the
that.
midterms. And if I was allowed to, I'd be down there door knocking.
Premier, you mentioned a number of times today that tariffs are a tax on Americans. If that principle stands, and I'm sure it does here in Canada as well, you know, how do you impose retaliatory tariffs without impacting Canadians, you know,
This is
spending
a
here?
good
That's
question.
good point. It is going to hurt. That's the cost of war. We have two choices, folks. We either roll over and he dismantles Canada and he says 51st state. We'll never be the 51st state. We'll do whatever it takes to protect our sovereignty. We're proud Canadians. And I'll tell you one thing, you know, we'll wait it out for 2 years. We'll wait it out for 2 years, even if he lasts 2 years, but we'll wait it out. And hopefully they'll come to their senses.
I mean,
when
there's
they
nothing we
see
can
the
do.
pain
Just wait it out.
he's putting on the American people. And we have to focus on the red states. And folks, I know up here, red is liberal, blue is conservative. It's opposite down there, just to explain to the people. The red states are Republican, blue are Democrat, but the red states, we're going to hit hard.
Hi, Premier. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Hi, Siobhan.
I just wanted to sort of figure out your thinking about how you thread this needle with the president taking very specific aim at you in deeply personal ways.
Good.
Well, also, why is that good?
Well, good. He can, you know, something. I've been in this game a lot longer than he has. I got skin on me like an alligator. And you think an insult from him hurts me?
Holy.
Well, bring it
We
on.
got
buddy.
alligator
I'm
Doug
ready.
over here.
Bring it on. You know something? I've dealt with guys like you my whole life. And guess what?
Ooh.
We all become losers because you're a loser.
Oh, burn.
Are you worried when you hit back
What a
that
burn,
way that
Doug.
you are making Ontarians and
Frickin'
Canadians
loser.
vulnerable because he is such an unpredictable figure?
We have two choices, Siobhan.
Shots
We either
fired.
roll back and let him take over our country, Watch the steel sector bleed out. Watch the auto sector bleed out. The auto part manufacturers bleed out. All the manufacturers bleed out. That's his game. But we aren't going to play his game. We're not playing his game. Folks, we're an economic powerhouse. Make no mistake about it. He says he doesn't need Canada. I'd love to see, he wants to take our auto sector. I'd love to see him run cars without any oil. I'd love to see, critical minerals. Message to the
Pretty
American
much the
people.
same gist of just
Fly larger. Let's create more
in Canada.
opportunities and more jobs. Do we keep buying American vehicles? And that's very personal to people. So, where we can, let's try to buy Canadian. But they'll have multiple auto plants closed down if that's the case. He says he wants to attack the auto part manufacturers. Like, maybe he just doesn't understand how parts go back and forth 8 times.
He
It would
doesn't.
actually shut down your auto plants. This will hurt them. It's not going to help them. And I've heard from Republican and Democrats, this is not good.
And you mentioned that everything remains on the table if things were to get worse. What would worse look like? Do you have a line in mind already?
Well, if it gets really, really bad, I say everything's on the table. I cannot speak for other premiers. But a couple premiers have a lot of power to protect Canada, massive power. And I can't speak for them, but we need everyone to be on Team Canada and throw everything in the kitchen sink at them, no matter if it's electricity, if it's fuel, again, if it's potash or uranium. We need to have everything on the table, but we need a buy-in from
In
coast
Canada,
to
baby.
coast to coast. And we'll work together with the other premiers. I know the Prime Minister will. But
I think
we
it's
could put
because Doug Ford is
massive,
extremely
massive
unpopular
pain
right now.
on the U.S.
That
They underestimate.
he's
President
really
Trump
willing to
underestimates us. And that's
work
the
with
biggest
like the
mistake,
opposition and stuff
underestimating your opponent.
for this.
Hi, Premier. Jeff Gray, Globe and Mail. I just wanted to go back into the events of the last few days. You mentioned on Saturday that you did not like the deal from the start. But can you clarify just when was it Friday that you told the Prime Minister no, I'm going to leave the booze ban in place?
Well, right from Wednesday, I said it wasn't a good deal, but I'm always willing to be on Team Canada. And as the
Like
week
the 8th
went on,
time
I
he's
spoke
mentioned
to the
Team
CEOs
Canada.
from the auto sector, auto part manufacturers, the CEO. And I want to give a shout out to Ron Bedard, a true
Thank you,
leader.
Broski. Have a good shift.
He's the chair of all the steel manufacturers. He is a champion for Canada. He was up till midnight the other night, but I've never believed in this deal from day one. And I'm so glad that the Prime Minister, and I know there was other situations that happened, that he took our advice. Not just my advice. Advice when he talked to CEOs, be it Ron Bedard or auto manufacturers. He made the right call. You have a little pain for long-term gain. And yeah, there's going to be a little bit of pain, but we're going to be there. The federal government's going to be there.
Interesting. I really want to hear what
is going to be there
Polyev
to
has to
support
say about
companies,
the whole
diversify
situation.
our trade, lower cost of taxation and regulation, and make ourselves more competitive. I'm confident when my minister, Vic Fideli, goes around the world and talks to companies, they look at Ontario as a safe haven, pro-business, cutting red tape, creating more opportunities for their companies to grow and thrive and prosper. And that's why we're fortunate enough to see 120,000 people employed, full-time jobs in the last 4 months.
But Premier, was it advice, or did you say I'm not lifting the booze ban, so this deal is going to be is not going to happen? And did you make those things we talked about the other day, and you mentioned today, the environmental, tailpipe issue, yes, and the industrial carbon tax? Did you make those preconditions for accepting any sort of deal?
The day and the night, I did tell him I can't support it. I can't go to DeFasco and look a steelworker in the eyes, knowing that if we took this deal, he wouldn't have a job in a couple of years. I couldn't go to
I'm
the auto
confused.
part manufacturers and the auto companies.
The Premier is saying we have a lot of jobs, we're bringing in jobs, Canada's great, we're okay. But the federal leader, Polyev, is saying that like we're losing jobs. I'm just a little confused as to what the story is. Doesn't look like he's even talking about the tariffs. As Canadians are vulnerable to an escalating trade, Canada deserves answers on how trade talks collapsed. Yeah, so he's literally one of the fringe people who don't agree that it's Team Canada. No serious government releases the confidential text of negotiating that did not result in. Why? Because negotiations involve offers, counteroffers, conditional concession, and red lines, and none of these constitute an agreement or deal. Publishing them after talks fail would simply reveal your negotiating strategy, your bottom line, and your vulnerability to the other side. Yeah. Okay, so he just doesn't make sense then. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Interesting. Does he have any statements on the whole trade war that's going on? I mean, I'm getting real mixed messages.
He's looking up the auto workers in the eyes and say, you aren't going to have a job in a couple of years. The total opposite. They're going to have jobs for long term in the steel industry. They're going to have long term jobs in the auto sector. So I have to go with my conscience. I have to go with what I believe in protecting people.
Matt Christie, the Hamilton Spectator.
Hi, Matt.
Hi. In light of the threatened new 50% tariff on steel, what measures is your government contemplating to protect steel workers in Hamilton and the Ontario steel industry?
Huge,
Well,
because
we'll be there
steel
for
workers are on
anything
strike
they
right now in
need. We're going
Hamilton.
to protect them through financial support, and we're going to be there for them to make sure that they're going to be competitive. But they're going to feel the pain too, because who is the number one customer for steel in the U.S.? Canada is. Ontario is.
Still
So
no
they're going to
mention
feel
of
the
the
pain in the steel
steel
sector as
workers that
well
are
down there.
on
But we're
strike.
going to protect them.
The NDP is calling on you to immediately recall the legislature to pass emergency relief for Ontario workers. Do you plan to recall the legislature?
No, I find that real ironic to start doing gutter politics in this time, that they want us to call the legislature back, that they actually voted against every single thing we've done for the last year to protect Ontario. Every recommendation they gave.
What? Amidst a trade war with the US, you don't want to bring back legislation?
Legislature.
Are you kidding me?
Workers?
This seems
Do
super
you plan to
important.
recall the legislature?
No, I find that real ironic to start doing gutter politics in this time. Feel the pain in the steel sector as well down there. But we're going to
recall the legislature to the NDP is calling on you to immediately recall the legislature to pass emergency relief for Ontario workers.
So Doug doesn't want to pass emergency relief for workers affected by these tariffs.
Do you plan to recall the legislature?
No, I find that real ironic to start doing gutter politics in this time.
And he calls it
That they
gutter
want us to
politics?
call the legislature back, that they...
What did I miss? The NDP is calling Doug Ford to bring back the legislature because they're out of like Queen's Park during this summer. To bring everyone back together so that they can pass some like legislation to compensate like workers currently being affected by these tariffs. And Doug Ford is saying like, no, that's gutter politics. Like, what do you mean, bro? We're in the midst of like the greatest like economic threat Canada's ever seen, and you don't want to bring back legislation.
They actually voted against every single thing we've done for the last year to protect Ontario. Every recommendation they gave, they voted against.
So they were bad recommendations.
We have a job to protect Ontario, protect communities, and protect companies. That's what I'm focused on, folks. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm going at 6 a.m. I don't stop till midnight, after midnight.
I'm not going to toot my own horn.
The death of me is going to be my
Proceeds
cell phone.
to toot his horn.
I get 1,000 messages a day. So my message to the people out there, I apologize if I can't get back to you right away. I do my very best. I return as many calls as possible.
Best isn't good enough, Doug.
I love people that send me ideas, and I have certain groups. I have certain groups that call you up and say you're a bad guy. Fine. Isn't that great democracy? You can actually call the premier up and tell him he's a bad guy or whatever. Then I have the second group that says, I love you, keep going and keep moving. And that's the number one comment that I get when I'm out there talking to thousands of people, no matter if it's going into a store or going into events. Everyone says, you're doing a great job, keep going.
Okay, how did we
don't
spiral into what is he talking about? The question is, he's going to bring back legislature so that we can pass a bill to compensate workers being affected by these tariffs. And now he's going on this giant rambling story about people like attacking him. What?
stop. That's the single number one message.
I thought he
And
had
then
thick skin. I thought
I
he had
have people that
alligator
send me
skin.
ideas, which I love. And then there's frequent flyers that want to call you every day or every second day. Those frequent flyers, just hang in there, and I appreciate everyone's calls. But yeah, it's overloaded. I think I'm behind 11,540 as of today. They're coming in every single minute. So just bear with me, folks. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can.
Hi, Premier Fatma Sayed.
So amidst the trade wars, you don't want to call back legislation because you're too busy. Too busy. Insane.
Narwhal. In your letter
an
to the Prime Minister,
unqualified
you wrote that
premier.
you'd like Ontario's considering exempting tariff-impacted sectors from emissions performance standards.
Yes.
Today, you've asked for the elimination of some of them. At the same time, you've often said that companies come to Ontario because of our clean manufacturing pitch. So how do you reconcile those two positions?
Very
and
simple.
are you now willing to weaken climate rules that were part of that pitch?
No, it's very simple. We have the cleanest grid in the entire world, folks. 90%. I'm going to pass this over to Sam Oosterhoff that takes care of the energy file, but 90%. We were at 94, and then we had to refurbish a couple of the plants, be it Pickering. It dropped down to 90, but our goal is to continue leading the world in clean energy with nuclear energy and other forms of energy. That will bring us up to close to 100%. So that's not a problem. What we have to do is create the climate for companies that come here knowing that they are going to have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. I'll give you one example. Dofasco, in 4 years, they'll be paying $500 million. Do you know what happens? They're up. Talk to Mr. Mattel, the owner of the largest steel company in the world. He'll get up, see you later, and go down south. That they don't have it. But I'm all for making sure we have a clean environment. We're spending tens of billions of dollars to make that happen. We're going to continue investing in nuclear energy that has zero emissions, clean, green, reliable, cost-effective energy. That's
Yeah,
why
Doug Ford
everyone, you
has
see
a
the whole
horrible
shift
track record
in
when
the
it comes to the
world,
environment.
especially in the U.S., are going to nuclear. We have the best in the world.
Like he's
Sam, I'll
literally
pass it
trying to
over to you.
repurpose the Toronto Islands into like a
Thank you,
airport.
Premier. The Premier is absolutely right. We are committed to defending workers, defending industries, and to 820 source with Minister Levers doing for the cost on
A company called Young Buns Lauer with their latest 700 and servicing protection, the Protect Ontario Fund last year, the Ontario Together Trade Fund,
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
$150 million protected 89 companies who in South Korea or Japan or in Germany. These are the kinds of successes because Ontario, because Premier Ford, because our team has created the conditions for these businesses to be set up for success.
Thank you. Sorry. No, that's all right. That's good.
With all due respect, I appreciate the clean energy argument and the pitch that all the ministers just made.
Oh, yeah,
but
get
this
'em.
is about climate rules for industry. Your government has given hundreds of millions of public money to companies like Dofasco to help them decarbonize. And right now, we are in tough times, and the first thing you're calling for is an exemption or an elimination of the same standards that would incentivize companies like Dofasco to move towards cleaner production rules and fewer emissions.
Exactly.
So how do you explain that to taxpayer money, taxpayers who have footed the bill for that green industrial strategy?
Great question.
I think we just explained that, but what we're focusing on is making sure that we survive. This is about survival right now, and we're going to do both. It's not either and or, it's and. We're going to lead the world in clean energy.
No, it's
and
not,
we're going to
Doug.
make it competitive for companies to come here and invest. It's as simple as that. But again, I appreciate your compliment on being the leader in the world on clean energy. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Premier Steve Cornwell here from the Trillium. Just on what the opposition is saying around recalling the legislature, they're saying that they want to work with you on a plan and kind of contribute to what the government can do to respond to this situation if it gets really bad. I guess my question is, what would be the harm in kind of calling the legislature back in the midst of this kind of 5-month break?
You know, I've been in this game a long time. They want to play gutter politics. They voted against every single item.
How is it gutter politics? Why don't you want to
protect Ontario?
like?
I am swamped right now. It's a 18-hour
come
day
on.
job with myself and my ministers.
You're too
If
busy
they
to
have
care about
suggestions,
the
call
people of
me up.
Ontario.
Everyone else calls me up. And by the way, I left one group out, the people that need help. I help people every single day on multitude issues. But call me up, give me suggestions. But make sure when we go back in the legislature, because we will be going back in our time frame, that they actually support things that we put forward, no-brainers. But they vote against absolutely everything. They want to play politics. I want to play, let's create jobs. Let's give people stability.
Or you're the one playing
Let's
politics. They want to
sure
bring you
that we have
back
a
so we can
stable,
pass legislation to help people
environment
currently being affected by
and
these tariffs
certainty.
that just
That's
happened.
what I want to do, and that's exactly what
It's
we're doing.
insane.
But we're going full steam.
In terms of all options being on the table here, one of the larger contracts that the province has signed procurement-wise this past few months was with Staples, which is owned by a U.S. equity firm. It's in the neighborhood of north of $60 million to supply Ontario schools with through the teachers kind of supply portal. Is that a contract that at this stage you would consider reconsidering based on how this trade spat is working out with the U.S.?
Not at all, because they employ thousands and thousands of people. It's like saying, don't buy a Ford car or General Motors car. They're American. No, I disagree. If you employ people here in Ontario, you're giving them a paycheck that can go back into the economy.
Yes, I
And
am.
all the supplies, we'll do everything we can to buy Ontario. It's in the legislation, and we're going to continue doing that. So it's like saying, don't shop at Walmart. No, shop at Walmart. They employ hundreds of thousands of people. So I don't buy that argument whatsoever.
But they don't give them benefits. They don't give them a livable
More companies from
wage.
the U.S. to come up, set up shop here. I want companies from around the world to set up shop here. That's what I want. So any American company down there, come up and set up shop and create jobs. And what a great jurisdiction to set up shop in Ontario, the engine of Canada.
Hey, good afternoon, Premier Manhamid with the Canadian Press. You just said 10 minutes ago that electricity going to the United States should stop. Can you expand on that? And is this a long-term goal for you or a short-term goal?
I think we start off with a surcharge. If it escalates, we have to use every tool in our toolbox. We aren't the only one that sends the electricity down to the U.S. New Brunswick does, Quebec does, BC does, Manitoba does, just to name a few. So we need to get together, all together, and decide if we're going to put surcharges on the electricity. How can we let them take really inexpensive electricity to make goods to compete and take jobs from Canadians? You can't square that circle. So we'll use every tool in our toolbox. Then we'll see if President Trump says, "Do I need Canada?"
Yeah, there's
Watch how
also
he does
some
cartwheels
stuff
and shouts
going
and
on today
screams
in
when we put the
Montreal
surcharge on. Matter of fact, I can't wait. I
and
cannot wait.
Israel.
Let's be clear. I don't like the guy. Simple.
On that note, do you see a pathway to resolution of this current trade war? And
I hope so.
Is it realistic to see that happening soon?
I hope so, because I bet if I took a poll down in the U.S., that poll would say, we don't want to attack our best customer, our largest customer, our closest friend, our closest ally that has fought shoulder to shoulder in wars against us, always supported us. And I believe that he'd get hammered on that poll. Matter of fact, we should do a poll down in the U.S., I think, just to send it out there. But, I don't believe the American people
the
feel
City
the same
Hall.
way. At least the ones I talked to, and I talked to
But
thousands.
the city council meeting
feel
in
the same way.
Montreal is not going to be
Let's
live
see what happens
streamed.
in the midterms.
This will be the last reporter. Hi, Adam Atkinson, CSH
But yeah, it's
News.
just about like
I
the
just want to get
stuff
your
going on with
reaction
Israel and
to
Palestine.
Trump's latest Truth Social post came down about 20 minutes ago. I wish I could do his voice, but I can't, so I'll just do it normal. Lots of bluster from Doug Ford, who is better known as the less charismatic, intelligent, and overall unimpressive brother of the late, great Rob
Yeah,
Ford.
this is what we saw
So you
earlier.
guys aren't going to be
Trump's
best friends. Let's
message
get
to
your
Doug.
reaction to that.
Well, I can go back and forth with Trump. You know, I'm not gonna. I'm just not gonna take the bait. This guy's a loser. He's gonna be a loser, and it's simple as that. We're gonna fight
Freaking
with
loser.
everything we have. And you know something? I have more courage, more brains in my baby toe than he has in his whole body. So
All right, Doug. Yeah, Montreal's considering cutting ties to Israel. That's a debate motion today, calling on the Canadian city to suspend all institutional ties with the Israeli government. Avi Lewis, Jewish Canadian politician, it's a reflection of widespread outrage among Canadians over Israel's actions across the Middle East. Interesting. He's responding to Trump's response? Yes.
Before we end Avi project, then
I'll watch this. I'll watch this Montreal Israel stuff after.
there you go.
That concludes our media questions today.
Well, folks, thank you so much. I want to thank everyone here. I want to thank the builders. I want to thank Mars Homes. I want to thank the mayor. She's a champion. You know, she's leading the whole province now. Did you know that, guys? 444 municipalities. She has cut down to 0 DCs. And congratulations, Mayor. Thank you. She's going to cut red tape like we are. We're still going to create more jobs than anywhere in North America. We're going to make sure we're prosperous, even with Donald Trump, the tyrant, coming after us. But isn't this great? He's going in 2 years, and he might even be going sooner if the Dems get their act together and win the midterms. So everyone down there, independents, Republicans and Democrat, kick this bully out of office. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of ridiculous not calling back legislation to pass, like, you know, some protection for the workers being affected by this. What Marit said about it. Families are already stretched by the cost of living crisis, 50% tariff war. For months now, people have been telling me that a year and a half of Doug Ford's tough talk, workers and families are worse off than when this fight started. Tough talk doesn't lower anyone's bills. Exactly. This is what Doug Ford was literally just saying. He's too busy to care about the Canadian people. I wrote Doug Ford today, who recalled the legislature now so we can pass emergency protections for Ontario workers and businesses. He said no, he's too busy. I don't know. It's too busy to do your own job. Okay, what's going on in Montreal?
from New York, this is Democracy Now!
You're at war when you get attacked. We got attacked. The U.S. put 50%. We waited until the United States decided to actually implement these so-called 338 tariffs. That's fine. We've got the reserves. We've got the resilience. We've got the plan. We've got the focus. We will respond.
The U.S.-Canada trade war is deepening after talks collapsed Friday. The U.S. has imposed 50% tariffs on Canada, which responded with retaliatory tariffs. We will speak with Avi Lewis, the leader of the New Democratic Party in Canada, and Lori Wallach of the American Economic Liberties Project. Then we go to Florida to speak with Angie Nixon on her upset win in Florida's Democratic Senate primary.
In November, we are going to
Nationwide protests in 2019 and earlier this year. In Gaza, 2 Palestinian brothers were killed.
The U.S. put 50%. We waited until.
This is a repetitive.
Actually,
okay, yeah, this is stuff going on in Montreal. I guess they're trying to like sanction Israel.
From New York, this is Democracy Now!
You're at war when you get attacked. We got attacked. The U.S. put 50%. We waited until the United States decided to actually implement these so-called 338 tariffs. That's fine. We've got the reserves, we got the resilience, we've got the plan, we've got the focus. We will respond.
The U.S.-Canada trade war is deepening after talks collapsed Friday. The U.S. has imposed 50% tariffs on Canada, which responded with retaliatory tariffs. We will speak with Avi Lewis, the leader of the New Democratic Party in Canada, and Lori Wallach of the American Economic Liberties Project. Then we go to Florida to speak with Angie Nixon on her upset win in Florida's Democratic Senate primary.
In November, we are going to show again what happens when every day people come together around a shared vision.
And we will go to California, where Aisha Wahab has won a special election for a seat in the House, even though AIPAC spent millions to defeat her. She's set to become the first Afghan American in Congress. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Anjali Kamath. Amy Goodman will be back later this week. Treat any threat committing on the International Monetary Fund now predicts Iran's economy to foreign minister of what that any nation's support for U.S. sanctions against Iran as an act of war. The threat came ahead of today's announcement by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent of what the Trump administration is calling an economic D-Day, aimed at completely severing Iran's remaining financial lifelines. This is Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi.
This is a repetitive scenario, from the crippling sanctions imposed during the Obama administration to the maximum pressure campaign during Trump's first administration, and now the latest sanctions. All of these measures have been introduced under different titles, but they represent the same kind of bullying that we have always seen in American policy. In other words, it is the same movie they keep playing over and over again. We know this movie, so we know how to confront and deal with it.
On Sunday, Iran's currency, the rial, sank to a record low against the U.S. dollar. The International Monetary Fund now predicts Iran's economy will contract by nearly 5.5% this year. Fuel prices are surging in Iran, something that preceded nationwide protests in 2019 and earlier this year. In Gaza, 2 Palestinian brothers were killed and several others wounded when an Israeli warplane struck a tent sheltering displaced people near Al-Aqsa Hospital earlier today. The attack followed another bloody weekend in Gaza. On Sunday, Israeli forces killed at least 2 Palestinians, including 4-year-old Mohammed Abdul Salam Taha. Separately, a girl was injured by Israeli fire on Sunday in a camp north of Khan Yunis. According to Palestinian officials, Israel has violated the U.S.-brokered so-called ceasefire agreement nearly 4,400 times since it took effect in October.
400 times? Jesus.
This is Abu Ahmed, a displaced Palestinian who was sheltering close to a building
Seriously
that was blown
despicable
up by Israel
what
on Sunday.
the U.S. has become. Like everyone hates the U.S. now.
There's nothing.
They're really
nothing.
bad.
Our lives are destroyed. Our youth are destroyed.
Look for
what can we do?
like
we
U.S.
want
citizens.
Solutions. We want to live in peace. This does not make sense. This does not make sense. It's true these things are happening to other people, but I am also human. I see these things. People torn into pieces. We die. Our morale is destroyed.
Meanwhile, Israel's government has warned it may further intensify its attacks after several kites landed in an illegal Israeli settlement on Gaza's border. Palestinian officials said the kites were flown by children, were made of paper, and posed no threat. But Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz accused Hamas of launching attacks, calling the use of kites an act of war.
Bro,
Israel's far-right
seriously?
National Security
Kids
Minister
throwing
Itamar
kites is
Ben-Gvir
considered an
has
act of
posted
war?
video on social media
You're kidding,
celebrating
right?
the construction of gallows where Palestinians will be hanged.
This is the facility. In this place, the terrorists will be executed. A hanging rope, viewing chambers where the crime victims will be able to come and watch, like in the United States, by the way. And we are
we seeing
fulfilling
this?
what we promised. Look, there were those who
They're creating
ridiculed. There were
hanging
those who
gallows?
giggled. This place is starting to be built. The facility is being built.
In March, Israeli lawmakers
Like,
passed
this
a
is
law
just straight
mandating
war
death by
criminals. What
hanging
the
for
hell?
Palestinians who are convicted of terrorism offenses. Jewish Israelis will not face the same punishment for similar crimes. In 2008, Ben-Gvir himself was convicted by a court in Jerusalem of incitement to racism and supporting a terrorist organization. Diplomats from Syria and Israel held U.S.-brokered talks in Jordan on Sunday aimed at easing tensions following repeated Israeli attacks, including
Like,
airstrikes
those
on a
kids who
major
threw
Syrian
those
Air
kites
Force air
would
base.
probably be victims
They
of
were the
this,
first talks
this
between the
public
two
hanging.
countries in several months,
Insane.
coming
It
after
feels so,
Israel on
like, third
Saturday
world.
struck a civilian vehicle on the outskirts of Damascus. Israel said it had targeted a, quote, terrorist in the deadly drone strike, which left several bystanders wounded. This comes as Israel continues to occupy Syria's Golan Heights, which it seized in the 1967 war, as well as more territory in southwest Syria it
What
seized
Montreal
after the
has to do
fall
with
of
this.
Bashar al-Assad. In Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports after talks collapsed without a deal on Friday. On Saturday, the U.S. slapped 50% tariffs on around $20 billion worth of imports from Canada. In response, Carney announced tariffs on $20 billion of U.S. products beginning on September 8th. Carney spoke to reporters on Saturday.
Why does it feel like today Mark Carney is going to war? Trade war. The tone.
You get attended to.
With the new We'll have more on the U.S.-Canada trade war
watched
after
this?
Wallach of the American Economic Liberties Project. In New York, a federal judge has struck down a Trump administration ban on issuing visas to immigrants from 75 countries. When the policy was enacted in January, the State Department claimed, without evidence, that people from those nations are likely to receive public benefits after arriving in the U.S. Among the countries targeted were Afghanistan, Brazil, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. In her
Yeah, it's only,
ruling, U.S.
like,
District
places
Judge Jeanette Vargas
with people of
said
color.
Trump's measure was, quote, patently unlawful and violated federal immigration law by discriminating on the basis of nationality.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
Texas, calls are mounting to shut down the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley, where it's estimated more than 100 children are being detained by ICE. This comes after a 5-year-old boy, identified as Liam Tadeo, and his father were taken by ICE on their way to a child's soccer game in Austin last week. Journalist Lidia Terrazas of Univision posted a video on social media showing Liam crying and his father handcuffed as they're escorted into a vehicle. The arrest happened just days before Liam was set to start kindergarten. This is Texas Democratic Congressmember Greg Casar.
This is the thing about this. Trump isn't deporting violent criminals. Like when Obama was deporting people, 98% of the people he was deporting were convicted felons of violent crimes. Right now, Trump is deporting, and it's like less than 2% of the people he's deporting are violent criminals, like part of the Mexican cartel gangs. It's 98% of them are people like this who have kids or taking them to soccer games or people at the DMV. It's insane. It's so crazy what's going on in the U.S.
ICE just arrested a 5-year-old boy on his way to a soccer game in my home city of Austin, Texas. His name,
This is who
just
you're
like
deporting in the
of the
name
little
of
boy from
safety.
Minnesota,
These are the
is
dangerous
Liam.
criminals that you're
And
deporting.
Liam
Come
should
on.
be starting kindergarten this week, but instead he's sitting in a trailer prison right now in Dilley, Texas.
Texas Democratic Congressmember Joaquin Castro said ICE denied his request to visit Liam and his father at the ICE camp. Castro said afterwards, quote, his detention is another devastating example of why Dilley must be shut down and why our government must end the detention of children and families. I have seen firsthand the conditions that children and families are being subjected
What's going on
to
with
at
ICE
Dilley,
is very
and no
similar to
child
what's
should be
going
held
on
there.
in Israel right now.
Dilley is run by the
The
for-profit prison
use
company
of
Core Civic.
government military
More than
on your own
160
land, on your own
have been
people.
deported to Haiti as the Trump administration begins to round up immigrants following the end of TPS, temporary protected status. It was the first deportation flight to Haiti after the Supreme Court greenlit the Trump administration's termination of TPS for an estimated 350,000 Haitians. The plane landed in the northern Haitian city of Cap-Haïtien Thursday. The country's main international airport in Port-au-Prince has been deemed too dangerous due to gang violence and growing political instability. Many of those deported last week were TPS holders and had been living and working in the U.S. since 2010. In related news, a U.S. Navy sailor who is on his 9th month of
It's funny
deployment
because these people having to
aboard
go
the
through stuff like
USS
this is what
Abraham
makes them
Lincoln
want to commit
said
crimes
his
and
father
act
has been
out. They're literally
detained by
turning them
ICE.
to what they
Joshua
see them
Aviles said he'd received a
as,
call
or
this
what they
weekend
accuse
notifying
them to
him of
be.
his
Not
father's
even.
arrest. Luis
This
Manuel
kid
Aviles
isn't
was
going to
taken
turn
into
into a
custody
criminal.
during a traffic stop in Key West, Florida. His wife said he's a handyman with a
What's
valid U.S.
happening
work
is
permit. Aviles
Trump
is
is just
originally from
lying
Nicaragua
about
and has
like
lived in the U.S. for nearly
that these are
20
violent
years.
criminals. Again,
His
we were
son
talking about
Joshua
this the
said
other
on
day
social media, quote,
about how it's like
"This is
blame like
heartbreaking
brown
for me.
people,
I don't
blame
know how I
immigrants
can
for your
mentally
issues. It's the
continue
same
working
exact thing,
12-plus
except
hour
like
days
taken
knowing
to
that my
another
dad
level
is
in the
somewhere
U.S.
possibly being treated like a criminal. My dad's only crime was coming to this country to give my siblings and me a better life." Tyson Foods, the largest meatpacking and processing company in the U.S., has shuttered 2 of its facilities in Illinois and Utah, laying off more than 3,000 workers. The company said in a release earlier this month that it'd be closing its Joslyn, Illinois and Eagle Mountain, Utah facilities, claiming, quote, "one of the most historic cattle shortages the country has ever experienced," as the reason for the move. About 2,500 Tyson employees were impacted in Illinois alone due to the sudden closure of the plant. Workers and supporters held a rally in Joslyn Friday in protest of the mass layoffs. They're demanding the facility be reopened, as well as 6 months of full compensation and benefits for workers who've been left jobless. This comes as Tyson Foods CEO and President Donnie King made over $34 million in 2025, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Insane.
In Northwest Indiana, thousands of homes remain without power.
Process of step was written.
U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy appeared Sunday on Fox News.
We're great trading partners, right? But Canada gets the benefit of trading with the U.S. way more than the U.S. gets the benefit of trading with Canada.
Lie. This is literally just another lie. It's a trade. We give you energy, we give you lumber, you know, to help build your houses, and then you pay us. Like, it's just simply not true. That's not how trade works. Like these guys literally just lie, or they're just very.
Canada gets the benefit
They
of
just
trading
don't know
with
how
the
trade
U.S.
works.
way more than the U.S. gets the benefit of trading
That's
with
a lie.
Canada.
That's not how trade
It's
works.
a country that doesn't have a military. We want
We do
fairness for
what?
the American
Yes, we
worker.
do.
And some of our best friends are the worst offenders that treat us the worst. And the fact that we provide their security for them and they take advantage of us, I think President Trump was the first one to go, you know what, that's not the kind of relationship that friends should have. And so the president's calling them out. I think you're going to see.
So this is the thing. They just lie about this stuff. Everything was fine. We were both mutually benefiting from this stuff. No one's taking advantage of the other person. That's not how trade works. But they lie about this stuff so they can justify putting tariffs on Canada to try and weaken Canada and sort of bring them in.
Mark Carney come to the table very, very
So,
quickly
like, it's
because it's
low-key
going
like
to be
an
devastating
unpatched
for his
strategy
country.
in politics.
On
Just
Sunday,
lie about
the
stuff.
editorial page of the Wall Street Journal ran an editorial headlined, "The Dumbest Trade War Revisited. Trump's decision to escalate
Salad
a
and
tariff
go? No,
brawl
what
with
happened with
Canada
salad and
makes
go?
no economic or political sense." The tariffs come just 10 weeks before the midterms. Economists predict battleground states, including Maine, Michigan, Ohio, and Alaska, could face now. A
here's
recent
Avi.
journal ration at economic pain from the tariffs. For more on this, we're joined now by 2 guests. Lori Wallach is director of the Rethink Trade program at the American Economic Liberties Project and founder and former director of Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. Her recent piece for Foreign Affairs is headlined, "The Right Way to Balance Trade, What Comes After the Neoliberal Order." She's joining us in Wisconsin. And in Toronto is Avi Lewis, the leader of Canada's New Democratic Party, the NDP. He's also a longtime Canadian journalist, documentary filmmaker, and activist. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Avi Lewis, let's begin with you. Talk about what these talks were supposed to be about and why they broke down.
Well, good morning, Anjali. Hello, Lori. It's great to be back on Democracy Now! This has followed a sickeningly familiar pattern with Trump threatening and setting a deadline for devastating. I think the Wall Street Journal, rarely agree with the Wall Street Journal, but this is incredibly dumb. It's also incredibly damaging and dangerous.
Apparently, they shut down all their locations and didn't let the workers know beforehand, so everyone went to work and had to find out through the customers. A lot of workers retaliated and trashed the store before leaving. This is why unions are so incredibly important. I think the rate of unionization in Canada is like 30%, and the US is only 10%. This is why unions are important. They bargain with the company and say, hey, we are not going to work unless you provide us these sort of benefits. So if Salad and Go was a unionized company, I'm sure that they could have gotten, at least some sort of notice, at least some sort of compensation after being like let go. But there's like this huge stigma against unions. Like that literal situation is why unions are there. It just sucks that America's like super anti-union for some reason. Well, it's not for some reason. It's because rich people don't want to pay. But yeah, that sucks to hear.
It's going to hurt Canadian
Wish they were
workers.
unionized.
It's going to hurt American workers. It's completely unnecessary. And at the last minute, after negotiations are going on, under the threat of these massive tariffs, suddenly Howard Lutnick arrives with a whole set of new demands at the 11th hour. This is the pattern, and we've seen it over and over again. In this case, Prime Minister Carney read the room correctly. Canadians are sick of this. We're already under punishing tariffs in many of our most important industrial sectors, from automaking to forestry to steel and others. And we simply are not in the mood to grant more concessions. And so the Prime Minister walked away from the table. But the truth is, and the wider context of this is, that unfortunately Canada has already made a whole bunch of unilateral concessions. And so we're in a weakened position just in the context of the short-term trade deal. The Prime Minister gave up the digital services tax without anything to compensate it. That's a modest, for big tech, that's a modest tax of about $7 billion a year. It was the only real solid tax we had on the big tech billionaire, I guess we have to say trillionaire class behind Trump. And that was at the beginning of this process, something like a year ago. We're also, while Canadians are united in this feeling that we've given enough to Trump's
we should be taxing these trillionaires.
And we can't concede further without securing protection for our own industries and economy. We're not all in this together. We have to remember, and Laurie and I have been fighting free trade deals between Canada and the United States since the 1980s because the integration of the corporate classes of our two economies has been achieved at the expense of working class people in both of our countries, and to the incredible, staggering enrichment of the wealthiest people and corporations in our economy. We are not all in this together. When the 6 big Canadian banks made $70 billion last year, they are not directly affected by tariffs, and they continue to make higher and higher profits every single year. We are not all in this together when the oil and gas sector in Canada, which is majority owned by U.S. corporations, is on track to make up to $150 billion in wartime profits this year alone because of the immoral, senseless, illegal attack on Iran by the United States and Israel. $150 billion in profits for this industry that is not affected, that has been spared all of the tariffs because, of course, the United States needs a huge amount of Canadian oil each and every day. So we are united as Canadians in rejecting more unilateral concessions. We are not all in this together in terms of who's going to be hurt. And we need to build an independent Canadian economy. Mark Carney has had well over a year to get started on that project. He has announced big plans like buying the oil industry a new pipeline for $40, $50, $60 billion of public money, like major projects that suspend Indigenous rights and environmental protections in favor of largely foreign corporations coming in and buying more of our resources. He's having an investment summit on September 12th in Toronto to invite BlackRock and Blackstone and JP Morgan. And the Prime Minister has mused about selling our airports and our ports and privatizing more of our economy to the benefit of foreign investors. So we need a Made in Canada plan to develop our autonomy and double down on the things that unite us as Canadians, like our embattled healthcare system, which is also being privatized these days. But we're not on track to do that. This is a fork in the road moment for Canada, and we have a completely different progressive vision to offer Canadians that would help Canadian workers, defend Canadian workers in this crisis, and also get back to work building a truly independent Canadian economy that would benefit American workers as well. As we'll see in this next period, everybody is going to be hurt by this.
Avi, these new tariffs affect about 5% of the goods, of Canadian goods that are imported by the U.S. They target about $20 billion worth of Canadian goods. Who is actually hurt by these tariffs? Who are the workers? What are the industries in Canada that would be hurt by these tariffs?
Yeah, I mean, this is, we already have tariffs on the automobile sector of 25%, a major integrated sector between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. And this deal was only to achieve a lowering of 25% to 15% on auto tariffs. That makes the auto industry in Canada uncompetitive, which is why Lana Payne, the head of Unifor, the largest private sector union in Canada, said months and months ago that no deal is better than a bad deal. But this is an extension beyond steel and forestry and auto to tariff a lot of consumer goods, everything from furniture makers to apparel to rubber and plastic products. This would bite deeper into the Canadian economy, across the economy. A lot of smaller and medium-sized businesses in every region of the country. But again, it's not all equally apportioned. It's always certain sectors and certain regions which are hurt the worst. In this case, my province of British Columbia would be most affected by this latest round of tariffs. Ontario and Quebec, the largest economic provinces in our country, would also be severely damaged by this. And don't forget that it's Americans who pay these tariffs, and it's American workers who are also affected. It's the cost of living emergency in Canada and the United States, where food prices, where rent, and the cost of putting a roof over your head, and all of the costs of living are going up and up and up in a period where people are really suffering. So, you know, there are corporate players who will make out fine, but it is the working class people of our continent who are going to be hurt. This may not be the huge proportion of Canadian exports to the United States in one of the biggest trading relationships on planet Earth between our two countries, but this is a deepening of an attack on Canada and on the American working class, which has been going on since Trump was elected for the second time. And here in Canada, we need to do something big about it. We've got plenty of fantastic proposals about how we could actually protect ourselves. In the short term, we have an unemployment insurance program in Canada that only covers 1 out of 3 workers that pay into it, and it only gives you a little more than half of your previous wage or salary when you get laid off. It's hard to qualify for. It takes too long to kick in. We need immediate reforms to our employment insurance system to cover people with more support faster and to cover way more workers in our economy. Those are sort of the short-term things. We need emergency assistance for the sectors that are worst hit by this. Again, manufacturing, wood products, apparel and furniture and others. But we also need a bigger plan to actually Trump-proof the Canadian economy. We could do things when we are making major investments of public dollars in oil pipelines. We could use that money instead to build an east-west electricity grid, double down on renewable energy, which is energy independence forever, because the inputs for renewable energy are always free, unlike oil and gas and coal. We could build an east-west electricity grid to trade renewable energy across our country with battery storage and the cheapest installed energy, solar and wind, on planet Earth today. The world is moving away from fossil fuels in this period, and Canada is being left behind because we continue under the Mark Carney government to tie our fate to massive military expenditures, massive fossil fuel investments, and all in on AI, which, despite the Prime Minister's excellent words about Canadian independence from the United States, mirror the Trump agenda. And unfortunately, under the surface, we're seeing an expansion of decades of integration of the corporate class between Canada and the United States. That is not a plan to make anybody safe.
I want to bring Lori Wallach into the conversation, director of the Rethink Trade program at the American Economic Liberties Project and founder and former director of Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. Lori, building off of what Avi was talking about in terms of U.S. consumers who are hurting, I just wanted to read a couple quotes from politicians from border states. Here we've got Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar saying on X, Canada is Minnesota's #1 trading partner. Minnesotans are paying for Trump's chaos. Republican Senator of Maine, Susan Collins, said the new tariffs would, quote, increase costs for Maine families as most businesses will have no choice but to pass on the tariffs to their customers through higher prices.
This is what I mean
Your
when I say
response to
Trump
what's
is
happened with
literally
the collapse of the trade talks.
stealing like money out of American citizens'
So
back
it
pockets.
is the case that
Because through these tariffs, things are more
situation
expensive for you.
is again,
Trump
I don't
is
typically agree
going
with the
into
Wall Street
every
Journal, but
American's
perhaps
pocket and
the
stealing
most
like
stupid trade
$1,000
fight
a year.
in history. In that, yes, if you are a purchaser in the U.S. of some of these goods, for instance, hockey sticks, but not pucks, I mean, go figure, you will see higher prices. But let's step back at the whole situation. And Avi's exactly right. You have at this moment this fight between two visions, neither of which are good for working people or for the environment. There is a way to do trade that benefits the majority of people, small businesses, farmers. And in Trump, you have an oligarch-first trade policy. He got elected saying he'd help working people. In fact, what he's done is make exceptions in his tariffs, whatever you think about tariffs at this point, 55% of imports into the U.S. have been excluded from tariffs because Trump gives free entry for his buddies in big tech, in chemicals,
Yep.
etc.
People that pay
So we
him.
have a situation where
Similar
between the
situation with Doug
disruption
Ford, but
of
again,
supply
it's just
chains
so much bigger
like the
in
U.S. and
America.
Canada, which have been not under the right rules, but united in a way that literally it's disruptive to U.S. manufacturing when there's disruption in Canadian manufacturing. You have a situation where the U.S. now is down 75,000 manufacturing jobs since Trump came back to office. We have 30% decrease right now in factory construction since Trump came back the second time because this the tariff chaos and malpractice is so severe. But the problem is in Mark Carney, there is sort of the high priest of neoliberalism, a guy who has been going around the world trying to sell the Trans-Pacific Partnership, NAFTA on steroids, extra goodies for big tech and for big pharma, ways to attack Canada's wonderful pharmaceutical pricing system that don't even exist in the old NAFTA as the replacement for the World Trade Organization, as if that's not bad enough. And there is something that is neither Trump's oligarchic trade grift nor the neoliberalism that Carney has in mind that actually could harness the benefits of trade, but neither of these guys is thinking about that. Rather, they're having this kind of personal fight, and it's political. So Trump can't bear the thought someone is standing up to him and not just steamrolling him. Folks in Canada are getting tariffed because they had the temerity to stand up and put tariffs in retaliation to Trump unilaterally tariffing them. That is the basis for these tariffs. And the notion that politically, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico right now have the only duty-free trade at all under Trump too. Canada and Mexico still have majority duty-free access. Underlying all of this is, will we renegotiate in a way that works for people on the planet the NAFTA replacement, the U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement? And there, I think, are people with a good vision. Avi, for instance, in the U.S., many Democrats in Congress, of how you could fix that agreement and have a lift-up agreement. But instead, with this fight, we're just heading in the worst direction possible.
And Lori, how have Trump's economic policies vis-a-vis Canada differed from those, say, with China? And this especially at a time where we're coming up on what the Trump administration is calling economic D-Day, threatening to sanction any country trading with Iran?
So this is part of the lunacy of the situation. The United States not only has many decades of putting the economies together, as Avi said, not on behalf of working people, but for instance, the aerospace industry, literally, if you hit tariffs on metal products that are part of the aerospace industry, which is happening, you hurt jobs in the US. Instead of thinking about how do we make this smoother, and the US and Canada have relatively balanced trade. If you take the crude oil sent to the US to be processed and employ US workers out of the formula, the US and Canada have balanced trade. And then tariffs go to 50%,
Just knows
and
Trump
some
and Doug looking
products are higher,
similar,
lower.
the no
But
eyebrow and barely any hair.
targeting Canada is
Yeah,
the
it's
big
the typical,
problem
like, when you
it's
imagine,
not.
like, a rich, evil
Rather,
billionaire, it's
a
like, that's
partner
what they look
and
like.
has balanced trade. Versus in China, China is the source of a ginormous trade deficit with the US, but not exclusively with the world. And it's because of particular policies that Canada is not implementing that China uses regularly, often called beggar thy neighbor, where you take policies suppressing wages, no independent unions, or no safety net, social safety net. So you basically suppress consumption. People save a ton because they're responsible for everything on their own. They have no support from the government. Or you subsidize at enormous rates. All of those interventions mean China is exporting an enormous amount. It's not just hitting the US. At this point, countries that were the emerging trade countries, countries like Mexico, like India, like Brazil, are going into trade deficits and are being deindustrialized because of this behavior in China. Trump has cut the tariffs. He feels some friendship with the authoritarian leader of China. And so he and Premier Xi have had many a happy meeting where they cut tariffs with China, the cause of the trade deficit. And here we have 50% tariffs on Canada. It is, I would say, something that is more like
Trump
middle
backs
school or
China over
childhood
Canada.
playground battles between Carney and Trump as compared to anything that makes economic sense or geopolitical sense.
Before we end, Avi Lewis, I want to go back to you, and I wanted to ask you about this other news from Canada. The Montreal City Council is set to
this
debate
was
a
the thing I was
controversial
waiting
motion
for.
calling on the city to suspend institutional ties with the Israeli government. Your response to this?
Well, I think I've been knocking doors in a series of by-elections that the Prime Minister has called in Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver. And I've been talking to a lot of Canadians at their doorsteps in the past few weeks over this summer. And I have to say that the ongoing genocide in Gaza is a pressing moral issue for, I believe, a supermajority of Canadians. I have only come across a couple of people who take a pro-Israel position at the doorstep and knocking doors in all of our major cities for weeks now. And the vast majority of people are shocked and appalled by the activities of the state of Israel, dragging the United States into attacking Iran in another endless, incredibly damaging war, spiking oil prices, and punishing people around the world with higher inflation and higher cost of living, which is already out of control. And the sheer trauma of witnessing, and Democracy Now! Has done a better job than most media outlets in the entire world in documenting the ongoing murder of Palestinians in the West Bank, in Gaza, what is effectively an invasion now of southern Lebanon. People are upset and traumatized by the impunity and the violence visited by Israel on many different civilian populations now in the Middle East. And people in Canada are appalled and want to see their governments at every level do something. We've seen a big battle in Canada, as you have in the United States, where the pro-Israel forces like AIPAC or CIJA here in Canada, there's the parallel pro-Israel lobby group, are on the defensive now. They still capture most of the political class and the mainstream media, but among the majority of people, we want to see our government step up and take a clear moral position against apartheid, against genocide, and against the killing of civilians. And you see these debates breaking out at the city council level, in educational institutions, and at the national level in Canada. And the tide has turned definitively, and Canadians want to see their governments and their elected officials stand up on the right side of history. It's an ongoing battle, and the forces against us, the conventional narratives are still very much in place in the political class and in the corridors of power. But the people of Canada know which side is in the light and which side is in the horror of these massive crimes against humanity. And I think the Montreal City Council debate is one of many that you're going to continue to see. It is not going to stop because Canadians are outraged by this impunity.
Avi Lewis, thank you so much, leader of Canada's New Democratic Party. Thank you also to Laurie Wallach, director of the Rethink Trade program at the American Economic Liberties Project. Coming up, we go to Florida.
Florida? I wonder what's going on in Florida.
Largely stayed silent on.
Already saw. Interesting. Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff going on. This is the Montreal rally 2 hours ago. 200 rallying in front of Montreal City Hall today in support of the motion labeling Israel an apartheid state committing genocide. The motion calls to bar Israeli officials from City Hall, visits by Montreal officials there, and cut all institutional ties to genocidal state.
Comme les citoyens et citoyennes de la ville de Montréal, pour dire qu'on va suspendre les liens institutionnels avec l'État d'Israël.
I hope this goes well. Yeah, I hope it goes well.
Growth. Supplying 99% of their natural gas imports, 85% of their electricity imports, 60% of their crude oil imports. I don't think they want us to stop sending any of that energy. The U.S.'s
Since day one, Donald Trump has chosen chaos and cruelty, doubling down on his trade war with Canada, further harming families, farmers, small businesses. This is a ChatGPT message because of the dash. Canada is Pennsylvania's largest trading partner. Pennsylvania is committed to strengthening our economy partnership with Canada. Yeah. I know. US is a mess. What is this? From yesterday? We'll buy Argentinian beef. What about the US farmers? 77 American cattle producers are going out of business. Yeah. See what the President of the United States say about it.
Question is, what do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, as they are
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can. But don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying. All right? They're dying.
What do you mean by being? Question is, what do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, as they are
Crazy. Anyways, municipal politics. Brad Bradford is running for mayor of Toronto. Which this guy is also a joke. Proud to have Paul Godfrey's endorsement. Paul knows that Toronto can be cleaner.
Anybody else? So you know something about running this city.
Yes, I did run the city from 1973 to 1984. And you know, at that time, everything went just absolutely great. When people come to Toronto now and they look at what happened, the breakdown of all of the traffic in the city, the roads are a mess. You can't drive in many of the communications of the city. I'm sort of embarrassed as a former guy. I still don't sleep at night when I look in the mirror and I find out that what's taking place, that the city is slipping away. And we don't want that, and that's why we want...
Important context on who this guy is that is endorsing Brad Bradford. He's the CEO of the National Post, president of Post Media Network, and he took like $1 million bonus during a time when the company that he owned laid off like all of their staff. And then he stepped down. This is the typical like rich, but you know how it's like up versus down, as in like low income versus like the trillionaire class. He'd be one of those like super rich billionaires who just want more money. But yeah, it's really, I think it's gross to be backed by someone like this. Yeah, and they always like rich people always threaten to leave, but they never actually leave. A lot easier said than done. I don't know.
Brad here. I wanted to speak to you for a minute. Last morning, Brad here. I wanted to speak to you for a minute. Last night, while the city was sleeping, bullets were flying. 2 apartment buildings in Thorncliffe Park were shot up. Apartment buildings where families and kids were sleeping.
Do you
Now,
think,
thank God, nobody was injured.
because he got that bonus, they had to
lucky.
lay everyone off? Like it was some
But
deal
it
he wanted
shouldn't
to make
take
with them or
luck and
something?
good fortune
Probably.
to make it
I
through the
wouldn't be
night here
surprised.
in Toronto. Let me be very direct. We have an increasing problem with gun violence.
We have an increasing problem with gun violence. It's down 20%. Like, I hate these people. They just lie. All they do is lie. No, like gun violence is not increasing.
Get through the night here in Toronto. Let me be very direct. We have an increasing problem with...
I don't even want to listen to the rest of it. Like, I swear, lying in politics is like an unpatched, like, strategy. What is this? No, it's actually a strategy because they can just lie. Most people aren't educated enough to take the time and learn about things. So they just believe it. The majority of people like don't like necessarily are invested enough in this sort of stuff. It actually makes sense for these people to just straight up lie. Sure, a group of people will call them out on it, but there's a bigger group of people who believe them. That's the whole, it's like why I'm streaming sort of thing. How to fight against that. Yeah, he's a joke. Super flippy floppy. Doesn't stand for anything.
U.S. tariffs took effect over the weekend after trade talks collapsed on Friday night. Clara Pasica joining us now from Victoria Park and Danforth with how Torontonians are feeling about all of this today. Clara.
Well, Dwight, Torontonians that I'm speaking to saying that that the fact that there are now billions more dollars worth of Canadian goods that are now facing tariffs, certainly putting a damper on some of the hopes that people had things could be getting a little better. I've been speaking with many small business owners here in this plaza telling us that things were already pretty tough after facing months and months of tariffs, and now things, of course, looking even more grim for those business owners and those workers, many of whom are going to be directly impacted by these tariffs. But many say that they are looking to fight back, continuing even more so to buy Canadian.
Well, we have a restaurant, and you know, we got to look for the deal, for sales. If you want to survive and stuff like that, you got to buy everything Canadian. That's basically what it is.
It doesn't matter to us. We should impose more tariffs on the states.
Employing more Canadians to make Canadian items, and I think that that's a positive thing for our economy.
So when it rains, it pours in a bad way for many of these workers and business owners. One person I spoke to works in an industry directly tied to steel, telling me that it was already tough that they had stopped allowing workers to do overtime due to the decrease in revenue that the business was facing, unable to ship things easily to the United States with these tariffs. Now saying that's going to really affect workers who rely on that type of overtime to make ends meet for their families. Certainly many politicians right across the country and this part of Southern Ontario have been praising Mark Carney for not accepting the deal many said was a bad deal that would have harmed workers and businesses more. Patrick Brown praising Carney, saying that the deal was certainly a bad deal for the Canadian auto industry. Certainly lots of workers in Brampton there. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow saying that the tariffs, of course, will be very harmful, but the city is ready to band together.
Toronto is incredibly resilient, even during this climate of uncertainties. In 2026, we are on track to create 16,000 jobs, okay? New jobs. Whereas in America, in a lot of the major cities, the unemployment rate is edging up.
Just an update for
now, Prime Minister Mark Carney saying that Canada will respond with retaliatory dollar for dollar
on Scarborough Southwest. So this is Fatima. They're doing pretty good so far. I haven't seen much, but like what they've been up to. But yeah, they're doing good. They're at 37%. Liberals are at 30. PC's at 28. So hopefully they can keep the momentum up. Yeah, they're doing calling.
Let's talk about Scarborough's healthcare. This crisis, at its core, it's a math problem. Let me show you. Our ERs were built for half the patients they see. They are running at 200% capacity every single day. Why? Government's own numbers show which regions got the least hospital funding. Fast-growing, racialized communities. Brampton, Markham, Scarborough. They didn't forget us. They just didn't fund us. And it got so bad, our hospitals had to run an ad campaign. Remember Love Scarborough? Billboards, TV ads, because here's a number. Scarborough is 25% of Toronto's population and gets 1% of its hospital donations. Think about that. A public hospital, passing the hat. That's what government abandonment looks like. And Scarborough still showed up. $200 million raised. The community did its job. Doug Ford didn't do his, because while we were fundraising for our own hospitals, Ford capped nurses' wages at 1%, while inflation ran at 7%. Nurses quit, hospitals panicked, and hired agency nurses at triple the cost. $9 billion down a money pit. Ontario now spends less on hospitals per person than any province in Canada. Dead last in the richest province. So, 2 solutions, both affordable, both proven. 1, beds. real staffed hospital beds. Ontario needs 17,000 more by 2032. Ford's building a fifth of that. And the community running at 200%, not acceptable. Scarborough needs to go to the front of the line, and I am ready to fight for that. 2, safe staffing. 1 nurse for every 4 patients maximum. BC just did it, Australia did it, and 7,000 nurses came back to work. Fewer readmissions save double what the nurses cost. Safe staffing doesn't cost money. It pays. Scarborough has always done its fair share. Now, in this provincial by-election, I'm fighting to make sure we finally get our fair share. And I hope you'll join me.
It's cinema. It's absolute cinema. Like, just straight, like, just beautifully said, wonderful message, great videography. All right, now let's see what the conservative candidate is posting.
From the Great Lakes to the Northern Shield, we're living strong and free.
Are we serious?
From the steel towns to the mining towns, the pride runs long and deep. Singing, this is our life, this is our heart and soul.
Like, how is it even close when we have
Let's talk
this versus this? It's crazy. And this AI generated thumbnail. What's the Liberal candidate doing?
Ahsanul Hafiz, and I'm running to be your next MPP from Ontario Liberal Party in Scarborough Southwest. And I'm very excited to welcome our Member of Parliament from Brampton and also President of Treasury Board of Canada, Honorable Shafkat Ali.
It's great to be here with my amazing friend Hafiz to support him in his upcoming election for Ontario Liberal Party in Scarborough. This is a consequential election. It is a very important election that Liberal needs to come together and come out and vote. He is an amazing, very hardworking leader, and he would make a great MPP for Scarborough.
So, like, no actual policies, nothing you guys want to do, nothing to actually stand for.
Yeah. Hello everyone, my name is Ahsanul Hafiz and I'm running to be your next MPP from Ontario Liberal Party, and I'm very excited to welcome our party leader John Fraser here today, and I had a very exciting time with him about with door knockings. And hi John, what did you hear at the door today?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here in Scarborough Southwest with you, and what we heard today is life is harder and less affordable for them. One thing families here at Teesdale are really concerned about is Doug Ford's cuts to OSAP. It's hurting those families. It's hurting their kids. They're worried that their kids aren't going to get the opportunities that they deserve.
And this is John, I'm not hearing only in Teesdale. The whole Scarborough Southwest is really worried about the OSAP cut. And there is one promise from Ontario Liberal Party: when we are in government, we'll make sure we're going to restore the OSAP back. Thank you.
We'll fix OSAP.
Okay, but that's an NDP. Mart was the one who led that. This is what I mean. The things that the Liberals do stand for are just like what the NDP have been doing.
Hello everyone, my name is Ahsanul Hafiz and I'm running to be your next MPP from Ontario Liberal Party in Scarborough Southwest. And I'm very excited to welcome one of the youngest Member of Parliament in Canada right now from Brampton Centre. Ontario's youth unemployment crisis is affecting thousands of young people trying to start their careers. More than 180,000 young Ontarians are actively seeking work, and the average job search for young workers has stretched to more than 4 months. When young people cannot find their first job, it can mean delayed careers, financial stress, and missed opportunities for gaining experience.
Ontario Liberals.
My name is Ahsanul Hafiz.
And again, this is something like Mara and the NDP have been championing. Oh, she's got clips from the debate.
It's important that we make sure that the housing that we build is affordable. Our plan comes down to 3 things. We are going to build, we are going to protect, and we are going to fix. First, build. Ontario needs to get back in business
I love
of
you,
building.
Fatima, but my clips are better.
I moved here with my mom as a teenager, and from a very young age, I had to work hard to help her make ends meet. And I think that shaped who I am. When I see
What is this?
I broke that. I went ahead and did it.
in Scarborough, we don't have time for this nonsense.
Like, bro, the NDP team are out here creating movies, man.
She got up at 6 a.m.
This isn't anything. I broke that. I went ahead and did it.
In Scarborough, we don't have time for this nonsense. Here is what I'll fight for. Hiring nurses and doctors so you can get faster health care. Banning predatory pricing so grocery giants can't rip you off. Reversing the cuts to schools and OSAP.
Fatima gets things done. Together we'll fight for you and your family.
Scarborough, we're done waiting. Our time is now.
Like, absolutely mogged when it comes to production value.
There's already a data center here in Scarborough. Now they want to make it 7 times bigger.
From 8 megawatts of power to 56.
Oh, we already saw.
Doug, I've got a scary story for you. Once there was a press conference with actual reporters with microphones asking real questions. Doesn't sound that scary to you or me, but to Doug Ford, it's terrifying. That's why he's hiding from the press, holding fake press conferences where only his staff are there applauding him. Because he's afraid of being asked about his private jet and about his team spending taxpayer money on luxury hotels and how he failed to protect Ontarians from wildfires when their homes were burning. He doesn't want to hear it. But there's one thing Doug Ford's going to have to listen to. The by-elections in Scarborough Southwest, Hamilton East Stony Creek, and York Simcoe. You can vote right.
So Scarborough Southwest were in the lead. Hamilton East, Stony Creek were also in the lead, but I don't think we are for the.
Doug, I've got a.
Where's the third by-election? York. Yeah, we're probably gonna lose York Simcoe, but big 2 out of the 3 ridings. But yeah, like if you look at just straight like production, it's like night and day. Team has 2K followers. The other election in Hamilton. Yes, the election in Hamilton were also in the lead. Let's see what Monique Taylor has been up to. On the picket lines, of course, classic NDP. Monique has always been a champion for workers and a friend of labor. We can count on Monique to fight for us. I endorse Monique Taylor in the Ontario NDP in the Hamilton East Creek by-election. USW District 6 Director.
One day longer. One day longer. One day longer.
One day stronger.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you so much.
So she's literally standing on the picket lines with the steel workers who are currently on strike. What are the other candidates up to? Celebrating Ukrainian Independence Day, okay. I didn't know there's a big Ukrainian population in Hamilton. And he's getting endorsements by corporate for Canada. Bro, come on. This is such a good contrast. We have Monique Taylor, who's at the picket lines with the workers who are currently on strike. And then we've got the Liberal candidate getting an endorsement from corporate for Canada. Like who are you really fighting for?
My name is Heino, and I grew up in a union home. My mom was a personal support worker.
So then why aren't you
and
at the
my dad
picket
was
lines
a
if you're
mechanic
a
and a
union
volunteer
from a
firefighter.
union home?
We had enough, but we didn't have much. So we relied on a public healthcare system to be there for us when my mom's back gave out on her. And we relied on a public education system to get me the quality education that I needed to go get a decent job. And we counted on our politicians to not waste taxpayer dollars, because in my family, every penny mattered. Us Ontarians, we've been able to proudly rely on our public health care and education system for decades. And us Ontarians, we expect our politicians to respect our taxpayer dollars. Now, the progressive conservatives, they're dismantling this Ontario, and they're wasting millions of your taxpayer dollars to benefit themselves and their friends. Now, I want better for Ontario.
Okay, but like, what are you actually doing though? Canvassing. Okay. Having Tim Hortons with, I assume, people in a retirement home. It's pretty chill. Yeah, the Ukrainian Independence Day. Pretty flowers. Interesting.
Heino is a good man.
Anyways, so Monique's on the picket line. What has she been up to?
Welcome back. People in Hamilton are getting ready for a new fight over farmland when Premier Doug Ford and his government, and they say the provincial by-election coming up in Hamilton East, Stony Creek, is a chance for voters to let the Premier know what they think of his development idea. Al Sweeney reports.
This is like the Greenbelt battle all over again. Protesters won that one when Greenbelt development plans were dropped. But they say Ford is taking another run at Hamilton farmland.
It's a disaster.
The government's Ontario Land Tribunal ruled this week that developers can build on farmland that Hamilton is trying to protect. It's forcing the city to extend its boundaries to let the new housing happen. Critics say it'll mean McMansion sprawl over prime farmland.
Massive loss of farmland, huge impacts on the streams and wetlands that feed into the streams that come into Hamilton, so probably more flooding, probably certainly more heat, because the cooling effects of the rural areas will be eliminated, and probably more congestion generally.
This is one of the areas affected by the decision. About 4,000 acres of land around Elfrida, south of Rymel Road.
Interesting. I guess Monique doesn't have Marit's social media team. Wish they did.
I've been a staff representative for the United Steelworkers here in Hamilton for the last 5 years, and every event that we have, Monique is there. She comes to every picket line, and she's just there supporting working people. The NDP is the only party that stands up for working people.
True.
Many times you don't know who you're electing and what they're going to do and how they're going to be. We've already seen what Monique is and what she can do. That's why I'm supporting Monique Taylor.
She's always there for us, always. Coming to picket lanes, events that we're putting on.
Monique's such a great person. She shows up when she's needed. She showed up to our strike line 3 years ago many times, asked if we needed anything, the day of mourning. She's always there.
She is the girl who's got you, and she has our backs. And she supports us and our labor and us as union members. She's there and she has our back.
Cool. Eh. Right, who's the conservative candidate in Hamilton? Jeff Beattie. What has the conservative candidate been up to? Boots in the Creek. Like a concert. Yeah, he's pulling up to like concerts, events, stuff, canvassing. I feel bad for these like PC candidates because they always have to like relate themselves to the most hated man in Ontario. Like this is just a bad look.
And Bettina in East Hamilton. The response out here has been terrific. We've been knocking on doors all day. Hey, what's up, Hamilton, East Stony Creek? Jeff Beattie here at the corner of Hickson and Bettina in East Hamilton. The response out here has been terrific. We've been knocking on doors all day, all night. We're going to keep going until we hit every door in every corner of this fantastic riding. And why are we doing it? Because people want a voice at Queen's Park that listens, that has a proven track record, and is ready to roll up their sleeves and get things done. That's
Proven track record of what?
Vote for better, vote for Beattie. We'll see you soon.
Cool little like promotional. Social media isn't too popping for any of them. There's this article I wanted to read on this election. Monique Taylor is the best choice for Hamilton East Stony Creek by the United Steelworkers. United Steelworkers endorsed Monique Taylor. She's always been a champion for workers, friend of labor. We can count on her to fight for us. Steelworkers are proud to endorse Monique Taylor in the Ontario NDP. Born and raised in Hamilton. She was a fighter for people here for 14 years as a member of provincial parliament. What an opportunity we have to send Monique back to Queen's Park alongside Ontario NDP leader Marge Stiles. Steelworkers have a proud tradition of supporting the Ontario NDP. The union was a founder of the NDP along with the Canadian Labour Congress. She will do what it takes to help her impressive track record of advocating for mental health, autism services for families, stronger child protection. They've been on the picket lines multiple times supporting the striking members. I was there too. Cool. Something to keep an eye on. They're gonna have a debate for a Hamilton East Stony Creek with Monique Taylor that I'll cover. I think it's next week, so sure to stream that as well.
Tariffs beginning in September. Meanwhile, Trump is saying that he's not even done with this long string of tariffs. He says that in the new year, he's going to be adding even more tariffs on more auto.
Thank you for this, Clara. Now, the Prime Minister's decision to break off trade talks with the U.S. looks to have support from Canadians. A new survey suggesting that the vast majority of people say taking a hard line with Washington is the right call, despite concerns for what it could mean for Canadian jobs. Marion Demain has more.
This new Angus Reid polling finds that majority of Canadians support Prime Minister Mark Carney walking away from negotiations. When we look at the number, it found that 76% agree with ending trade talks. It polled nearly 1,500 people across all 343 federal ridings in this country, with a margin of error plus or minus 2%. It also found that 1 in 8 Canadians,
Next week,
13%, say they're concerned about losing their job. 25% are anxious about that as well. Shashi Kurl is the president
but
of
it's
the
like
Angus
not
Reid
going to be
Institute and
live
explains
streamed.
what this all means.
Well,
And
now
they're
you've
having another
got
one early next week.
3/4 of
Well,
Canadians who say
I'll
that
figure
the
that out.
Carney government was right to walk away from trade talks on Friday night. So that is a pretty strong endorsement. And again, it really proves and demonstrates that sense of resolve and strength, and we're not going to be rolled over, wasn't just a theoretical thing that dissolved or dissipated when the crisis hit. Canadians are still very much in that, okay, we can get through this space.
The poll also finds that there is strong support for Prime Minister Mark Carney's plan to match those 50% tariffs dollar for dollar, with 62% in support. Marianne Domain, CBC News, Toronto.
You're watching CBC News Toronto. We will have more stories from our city when we come back.
All right, I'm going to call the stream there for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.